Good morning, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining us for this panel discussion today. My name is Hari. I'm an associate director with Avishkar Capital, one of the largest impact funds globally. And today we have a distinguished line of speakers, all from different parts of the edtech landscape. And we'll get to know each of you one by one as the panel progresses. Now, as India, gradually evolves into a global powerhouse, edtech has become the next major domain for companies to conquer. A relatively untapped sector till recent times, till the pandemic, edtech has the potential to become immensely profitable for companies who have the correct tools and resources to deploy and make their mark. Now, by focusing on the latest tech trends, including immersive learning, homeschooling, AI-driven adaptive learning and gamification, and by injecting these tools and trends into the education ecosystem, edtechs truly have the potential to change the time-worn Indian education system from its very core. Now, for example, chatbots can become key enablers for digital learning, and they have already started becoming such enablers. And ChatGPT in particular has the potential to have a colossal impact on the way Indian students learn. An obvious use case, for all of us is, teaching students the basics and then offering ChatGPT as an avenue for solving their queries. In the last couple of years, in fact 2 to 3 years, you have seen record inflows into the edtech industry in India. At the same time, India is witnessing a lot of global interest, investor interest for its demographic advantages, including a significant English-speaking population. So all of this bodes well for both established companies and emerging startups in the edtech domain. Now, with that background, I once again welcome you all to this panel discussion. Today we will be speaking about enabling edtechs to deliver greater value to the education ecosystem. This session is very important for edtech entrepreneurs and stakeholders who wish to stay ahead of the curve and offer effective and innovative learning solutions that cater to the unique needs of the Indian learners. So we have, luminaries from different parts of the edtech landscape, like I mentioned earlier. All of you have your own expertise, unique expertise and insights, and we hope to hear your experience, your ideas, your learnings on how to navigate the edtech landscape in India and build a truly successful and sustainable startup in this space. So without further ado, I would like to pass the baton to Pallavi. Pallavi is a director of sales, B2C unicorns, digital natives at Microsoft India. And I invite her to set the premise for today's discussion.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And again, welcome to the esteemed panelist of today. So I'd like to bring in this other perspective. Since the 75 years of independence, we have grown to become the 5th largest economic powerhouse. And of course, there's just so much more that we can do, right? Our talented youth of today can really take us to become the number one. But for us to really continue to be on that path, right? Churning out this next set of scientists, making us that software capital of the world, making us the IP capital of the world, and making us the data capital of the world, which India is scheduled to become. We really have to accelerate and innovate on the pace of education transformation. And I believe that education transformation can happen by a couple of things, right? One, ensuring that education is available at the last mile. And I know a lot of you all are working towards education availability at the last mile. Second, ensuring that the kids of tomorrow, are able to educate and learn what's relevant from a technology standpoint. And third is our schools, colleges having the opportunity to enable our kids with to enable learning outcomes equally across all of these opportunities. So with this, I'd like to hand it over to you, Toby.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for kickstarting the discussion with those wonderful insights. And before we move on to the panel discussion, would love to introduce our esteemed speakers today. So we have Santosh Gupta, who heads IT at ZLearn. We have Yatish Gupta, who's the co-founder and CTO at Purple Tutor. We have Shirish Kalamkar, CTO at the Ampersand Group. Welcome, Shirish. We have Sagar Menon, who's the co-founder and CEO at Mocha. We have Imran Khan, who's a city head at Jambori Education. We have Swapnil Kamath, who is the co-founder and CEO at Upgrade Work Better. We have Varun Damicha, who is the Chief Digital Strategy Officer at Times Pro. We have Bhupesh Daheria, founder and managing trustee at Aegis.
Good morning.
We have Sudhir Kukreja, who is the co-founder and CEO at Credence EdTech. We have Dushyant Panchal, co-founder at Edgest. We have Ojas Barve, who's a chief learning officer at Novels. We have Shraddha Musale, who's the founder at Future Tayari. And of course, we have Pallavi. So let's kickstart this discussion, and we will direct the first question to Pallavi herself. So Pallavi, the edtech wave became significantly stronger in the last few years, and obviously the pandemic had a role to play in it. In your opinion, do you see these edtechs maintain their momentum that they have gained over the last few years?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think needless to say, obviously the lockdown propelled, online education in a very, very big way. I think all of us got used to the fact that online education would be the new norm. And I think that's kind of continued, whether it's home tutoring or online education as the next mode of while the schools and colleges have all opened up. But that matter, according to a recent study by the Research Group, right? They're talking about the edtech opportunity growing from a $2.8 billion to about $10 billion up till 2025, which is a CAGR of about 28%. Huge opportunity of what's happening as part of NEP 2020, the whole digital education-led pieces. Government is really after enabling equitable distribution of education to everybody. And that's going to be a huge thrust which will ensure that edtech is here to stay and ensure that education is going to be imparted to everybody last mile as well.
Absolutely, completely agree with all those points. And that brings us to our next question. And I would love to hear Sudhir and Sagar's views on this. Sudhir, I'll go to you first. What are some of the key factors that are driving the growth of edtechs in India? We heard a few of them from Pallavi right now, but would love to hear a little more from you on this.
So I represent a group of schools which is operating schools across tier 1 cities, tier 2 cities and tier 3 cities. And at the same time, we have a edtech company working on. So I've kind of seen the entire spectrum and experiencing it since last 2-3 years, like a real up and down kind of a scenario which is happening for us. So what is driving the growth is precisely what we discussed, in terms of the quality of education, the accessibility, the availability. So, I would probably India is of course a very complex market. You really cannot look at it like a one piece suiting everybody. So the kind of needs that you will have from a school ecosystem or not just school, maybe the entire education ecosystem, whether it is at the higher education level as well. The scenario, the expectation, the demands, the needs that you have probably with people in cities like Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad is very different from the moment you go to a tier 2 city, and they change dramatically the moment you go to a tier 3 city. Now, this diversity has brought in a lot of challenges, and it has also brought in a lot of opportunities. So we've come across a lot of edtechs which have offered a lot of vernacular, solutions, and that is the reason, something which was probably available in a metro city, parts of Mumbai has reached a remote town or a very small village of the country, and that is probably the biggest opportunity, the biggest positive that edtech has brought it, right? And that's something which I believe, like I mentioned, is there to stay. It's something which is really giving them access. We are probably heading towards a space where we'll no longer have only quotas of the world people getting into IITs and IIMs, and then people from a very remote locations, etc., will have the access to same quality of education, and that's probably what is going to
more democratizing access.
Exactly. So that is something which is going to really drive the edtech. That's what I believe.
Wonderful. Sagar, your views?
I think I agree with Sudhir in most places. One place where I might have some an interesting perspective is I do think non-profits have a space in edtech very particularly, and a brilliant example, a global example would be Khan Academy. To see the kind of impact Khan Academy has made across the world, and the fact that they're still quick enough as a startup to implement. Khan Academy has been one of the first organizations to implement GPT-4 into its platform. So non-profits have a space, especially for equity of access. Bloom had an analysis where it segregated India into 3 Indias. India 1, India 2 and India 3. India 1 is the most highly monetizable regular transactors of the internet. India 2 are occasional transactors. India 3, not monetizable at all. Yet to be monetized. So if you do want to talk about equity of access, you have to talk about the individuals or the users that cannot be monetized. I understand that we are edtechs and we have to think about profitability, but if you're thinking of equity of access, I think platforms like Khan Academy are required, and platforms like YouTube. I don't understand the lack of conversations around YouTube as an edtech platform, because I definitely do think YouTube plays a huge role. And I'm an engineer, so if you look at a lot of coding videos on YouTube created by tier 3 individuals from tier 3 cities, you will see most of the comments are from the US or Europe. They're like, these guys are brilliant, because the kind of content that we can deliver, the kind of brevity that we can deliver technical content to is unparalleled. I don't know how many of you are aware, but there are memes that are being created around the fact that we learn one day before the test, Europeans and Americans learn through Indian YouTubers. And when it comes to profitable edtech companies, I think there needs to be, for sustainable growth, there needs to be an equal balance between ed and tech. If you want sustainable growth in edtech, you need to have an equal balance, because you need tech to scale. And with tech, you also need quality education. Like, it can't just be tech for scale without quality education. Then you again have tuition classes.
And you also need engagement. So the point that you made on YouTube is very interesting. In fact, a lot of edtechs that we have spoken to in the past have used YouTube as an effective means of engagement.
Absolutely.
And on that note, on the note of platforms like YouTube being fairly engaging for the students themselves, one trend that we are seeing in recent times is the proliferation of immersive learning, right? In that context, Dushyant, I would love to understand your views on how do you see this trend playing out, how it is going to change the way Indian learners learn, and how educators teach.
Hey guys, good morning. I think before I start speaking on that, little context about what I do will be more important to set the premise. So we aggregate more than 50-60 edtechs across the globe: US, Canada, Middle East, Australia. Most of them are Indian, 20% are international edtechs. So figuring out the macro trends of what can be sold where is part of my bread and butter. So since I'm partnered with a lot of international edtechs also, when we're talking about edtech, as Sagar mentioned, there is technology and there is education. When you're talking about the technology, it might sound cynical, but we are almost half a decade far from what the West is doing, and almost a decade far from what East is doing. A couple of things that I would want to mention over here, since I was talking about the East. Okay, so there are a lot of 3D projectors that are coming into Indian schools and Middle Eastern schools. Okay, China started implementing this in 2015, right? The latest what they are experimenting with is it's surprising but very interesting that they've got this EEG bands that the students wear, right? It measures 1200 plus data points from your brain waves, and it gives a signal at the top of your head with a color. So if it is red, it is focused. If it is blue or purple, the student is not focused. Now, how interesting would it be if I tell that the gentleman in that blue suit is not paying attention, thinking about dominoes while I'm talking, right? It is not his fault, it is the fault that my content is not interesting enough. So over here, that is not to figure out which student is paying attention or not, it's to figure out which teacher is engaging enough, right? So, like, we are still far from there, a lot to catch up. However, when it comes to education, there's a lot that Indian ecosystem can add to when we're talking about content that goes into these VR headsets or immersive learning technology. So yeah, that's my piece.
In fact, interestingly, I also came across a technology which, while it was not about strapping EEG bands to the heads of students, it was basically tracking their eye movements to understand whether they're paying attention or not. And the first thing that came to my mind was like, boss, I wouldn't have known this if I was in school. But yeah, on that note, Shraddha, would love to hear your views on the same question.
Yeah. Thanks, Dushyant. This was insightful, some of the things which we didn't know. I'm an actor. So when an actor gives audition, for a particular role in a film, basically the casting director would want to check our acting capabilities. But what we do? We tend to become the character. We wear the clothes, we do the right makeup, we do right hairstyle, everything so that I absolutely look the character. So when our senses are involved, similarly, if you explain to me something, I might try to understand. But if you show me something, I'll absorb it quickly. It's feeling. Now we understand that our body doesn't understand the difference between
experience and reality. So we need to include all these things. For example, technology. We all know like so many people want to learn public speaking. For that, very important is go in front of people and speak. Practice is important, but that's what you're scared of. What to do? Virtual reality glasses. You wear them, you see virtually all the people, you can hear them, you can feel the noise, you feel you're on stage. That's how you practice. Nobody would come to know. So I feel artificial intelligence is great to measure the needle movement by the teacher or the expert, and I think AR, VR is great to enhance the learner's experience.
That's a wonderful take on the use of technology. I mean, that's one of the best examples I've heard in recent times on how you can actually use technology for soft skills.
Yeah.
So, wonderful example. And just on that note, would love to understand your views also on this topic.
Yeah. So, first of all, good morning, everyone. Today, we are thinking that we have technology, we can use it, leverage it for educational experiences. However, I still feel that today, tech companies are not thinking about exploiting technology to its fullest. For example, we are still thinking about creating books for children which are QR enabled. And I think that is something that all of us had seen it long ago in the countries outside India. However, again, equity in education, has it reached every, part of the country today, all the schools today? No, even that has not reached. We should also understand that is this technology going to be used in, let's say, a tier 1 city schools or tier 2 city schools or tier 3 city schools? Talking about accessibility, and today in the age where we all have seen that it's not just edtech companies' responsibility to provide education to possibly every learner in the country today. However, what is important, and as a part of the organization that I am working for, what we are doing is collaborate with the governments, collaborate with businesses, and collaborate with non-profit organizations. Because I think where, as profit-making entities, where our vision possibly leads us to, and where they they start thinking, I think that is where the gap is. All of us should be open to collaborating with such entities who are creating impact.
So yeah, absolutely wonderful point. And on that note, another trend that we are seeing is homeschooling, right? And it's still up and coming, but there is definitely a shift towards it, especially given the legal recognition that it has got in recent years. Now, there have been a lot of homeschooling startups that have come up, and obviously, technologies like AR, VR, etc. have also changed the way we are looking at education. Now, on that note, Santosh would love to understand, what according to you are some of the benefits of homeschooling?
I represent Zealand. We have 2,000 plus preschool all over India and 120 K-12 schools. During COVID, we all have seen like it was physical, and then during COVID it was complete online. So considering what homeschooling is and who's our end customer? Our end customer is parent and then student. So we have to cater their requirement. We have to consider customer as a as a central point. Parent need my child should learn everything. He should not miss out any part of education. And especially during COVID, he has seen as a risk, he can't send his child in the school. So for homeschooling, we should have flexibility for learning. And in India, personally, I have seen hybrid blended learning is the solution which every parent requires. This is the need of parent. I don't want to miss any class. So classroom should be available as and when, on demand, wherever I am, and easy to access. At the same time, as Shraddha mentioned, emotions, socializing, all those things also should be there. So we have to have solution where this thing can be blended as a part of solution and easily given to our end customer.
Great. Shirish, would love to understand your views on the same topic.
Actually, it's not right for me to speak about home learning and considering my group.
That's exactly the reason I posed the question to you.
This particular movement is definitely growing in across the country, and as you rightly mentioned, that is into an urban area to a large extent. Definitely, parents would like to give a quality education to every child, and the parent has a lot of expectation. So many a times I speak in a private forum about this kind of a trend. Now take an example for my generation, probably your generation, maybe every parent must be having, I will consider myself as a one generation ahead of ours. Just we used to have a 3-4 siblings as such. Somebody used to become a doctor, somebody used to become a lawyer, somebody used to be a teacher, or diversified expectation, or every child used to fulfill one of the aspiration of a parent. What has happened is we have only one child. I really feel very sad about the girl child. We are literally bothering them with a lot of it. Mother want her to learn Bharatanatyam, music, drawing, and apart from that, expectation is that she should stand in a first, as a first in the school as such. So that becomes a kind of an abomination to the student. However, though there are definitely a lot of advantages of homeschooling, it's a deep learning. The interest can be identified, but at the same time, we need to catch that interest at appropriate time. There is no point, like we have seen it in the 3 years, that without having a kind of understanding the interest, if we push somebody to go into engineering or medicine as such, then definitely we are not going to create a kind of a good expertise into that particular system as such. But then yes, we need to catch those things. There will be a kind of a focused learning with the help of homeschooling. Okay, urban area, probably our children are grown with the kind of they know English. The contents, most of the contents are available in English. What about my regional language? So that is the kind of we need to create a pedagogy first. We need to have that culture to be penetrated. Quality of content has to be created. And then I think homeschooling will always can flourish. I think that is what I would like to say on the homeschooling.
Absolutely. Agreed with all those points. In fact, homeschooling can take off some of the pressure that you are talking about, that in-school pressure that students generally face, and also the expectations that parents have of them, right? Ultimately, some part of the burden for homeschooling also moves on to the parents. So hopefully the parent also understands the pressure that the student is going through. But yes, of course, I mean, we're still a long way away from implementing effective homeschooling solutions. So, thank you so much for your views on the same. Just moving on to the next question, and this is to Pallavi. Pallavi, just coming to the main topic of the discussion, how do you see edtech companies adding greater value to the education ecosystem?
Couple of things that we see, probably given that the diversity of the nation, right? One, accessibility and affordability being the key to tenet, right? The second piece is the whole language barrier. Again, multitude of languages. What are we doing to ensure? The third is the content type itself, right? We have so many different curriculums. Are we as edtech providers able to offer different varieties of content to be able to meet the different curriculum types, whether it is ICSE, CBSEs, or the local boards, or whatever it be? The fourth and very important part for us is essentially the teacher training, right? And it's very, very important given that teachers are at the heart of education impartment to the student.
So then maybe we can move on to our next question, which is how do you see these AI-driven technologies like ChatGPT being used to create innovative solutions to address the unique needs of Indian learners? On that note, Pupish would love to hear your views on this topic.
Good to hear all of you. Let me give you my background.
Yeah.
So I have been in edtech industry when edtech word was not coined. I spent almost 27 years, right, from teaching students for CAT, GRE, GMAT. Then currently I teach AI. Now, let me take a cue from what Sagar said and Pallavi, right? So one of the mission which I have been working is basically offering the equitable access to the learners across the world, and that is the mission in Immersive, not in ages. which is reducing the birth penalty or eradicating the birth penalty. Now, and that's where Khan Academy kind of has played a major role, and that is where the profit motive actually comes in an obstacle, right? First, issue is not about the technology. Technology has been there for last 20 years and it will be a lot of technology, but we need to cut a lot of clutter, and specifically on the AI side. Generative AI is nothing, is basically repackaging and making it much verbose and beautiful, structured knowledge to you, right? And as a slave mentality, we appreciate that, right? So अगर मैं आपको 4 पॉइंट में देसी भाषा में समझा दूंगा तो आपको सेक्सीनेस नहीं लगता, बट चैट जीपीटी जब उसको वर्बोथ बताता है और आपको लगता है कि अंग्रेजों की तरह से लैंग्वेज लिखा हुआ है, तो यू रियली अप्रिशिएट, बट न्यू नॉलेज ऐड नहीं कर रहा है. चैट जीपीटी इन लॉन्ग रन 20 years विल मेक एनीवे मशीन इंटेलिजेंस के सामने ह्यूमन इंटेलिजेंस जो है वो पैट की तरह है, राइट? तो अगर चैट जीपीटी के इंटेलिजेंस को देखो, वैसे बाय द वे चैट जीपीटी इज नॉट इंटेलिजेंस, बट इफ यू रियली टेक अ रेफरेंस, you think like you are a cat, right, or a dog, and this gap is going to really increase. But there is a huge difference between generative AI and the current state of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is incapable of generating the new knowledge, right? But we as a human being, we can grasp the knowledge and we can generate the new knowledge. But hopefully in future, this AI is going to break that barrier as well. और जिस दिन वो होगा वो ह्यूमनिटी के लिए तबाही हो, ठीक है? अगर ह्यूमन को मशीन से बीट करना है तो हमें अपनी क्रिटिकल एबिलिटी, प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग एबिलिटी उस पर ही बिल्ड करना पड़ेगा. द टेक्नोलॉजी नीड टू बी यूज टू ट्रेन टीचर्स एट अ मास स्केल. लेट्स एग्जांपल, न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी में 10 मिलियन टीचर्स की ज़रूरत पड़ेगी पाइथन पढ़ाने के लिए. आपके पास 100 टीचर नहीं है अवेलेबल, उसकी वजह से वाइट हेड जूनियर डूब गया, ठीक है? सेकेंड थिंग, टीचर्स नीड टू बी टॉट, they need to be trained, and that is where the education technology will use, and that is where we at Aegis excessively use technology to train teacher. Simple.
So, while I agree to a lot of it, most of it, I will respectfully disagree with few of the points.
We disagree.
So basically, first of all, let's concede ChatGPT is scary. Let's not call it that it's just a wrapper on something. It is scary. It scares all of us that are we good enough for our job, right? But a lot of progress is there. Like, I get pleasantly surprised when I see my kids' book and when I remember what I used to read, and it has evolved. What Bhupesh sir is saying is right, that it has to evolve faster now. Yeah. That's one. Second, I completely agree on the point that it has to be there to help teachers. My understanding of Indian education system is that the problem is in K-12 segment. If I have passed 12th, I should be able to study by myself. So the mindset has to change, that I have to learn. Not really that I have to, it must not be the outcome driven, right? I am learning for doing this job, for clearing this interview. That has to change. Now that will change. I mean, obviously it takes time for government to move. I mean, we can appreciate that in our 50-100 people, let's say thousands of people company, there are so many challenges. Think about government running more than billion people country, right? So it's difficult for them to solve that problem. But they are definitely moving, in my opinion. They are definitely moving in the right direction, and they will have to move faster. They will be forced to move faster. I think the critical thinking, problem solving, communication, the empathy, the humanities subjects are going to make a big comeback. Right? So the normal way of teaching is not going to work. Normal way of subjects is not going to work. So maths, which is being taught in schools, right? I mean, I faced that. I was really good at maths. So I cleared JEE, I was good enough, basically. But when I went to the college, I could not identify maths. This is maths. I mean, cleared JEE, and what is this? This, that, wrong.
The blind?
There's a huge gap. huge gap. It suddenly takes a jump.
OS level पे चली जाता है.
It has to be there has to be a way to change that, because whatever we are teaching in school was actually discovered, invented, whatever you say, about at least 1,000 years ago. Right? So we have to solve that problem. Once we solve it, it will really, there will be a chat GPT moment in the Indian education system.
So very interesting views from all of you. And the key takeaway is obviously what you just said, which is that it's here to stay, whether you like it or not. It depends on how you live with it, how you adapt to it. Wonderful. Thank you for your insights on that question. I think now maybe that would be a good segue into the demo.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. I've been listening over there to all the inputs that you've been giving. I think it's a very enriching discussion. And I do have some answers for you for the challenges we discussed. So let me start with how you can really access technology in local language. Many students, they would want to understand more in their language and the language they're comfortable with. While we're using technologies, let's say like Zoom or Teams, it is still in English. Can students really see the content that has been shared? So within Teams is a Microsoft product. If you've been using in your day-to-day life, we have a Teams for Education, which means that it's exclusively built for education. So you can send assignments, teachers can track process. Now over here, it's not visible, but essentially, while some of it is in English, it's actually been translated to Hindi over here. So this all is actually in Hindi. So if I'm a student who's not comfortable in English, I can change the language to Hindi and see the content which the teacher has shared. The teacher doesn't really have to share it in Hindi. It's all, at the technology level, it's translated. Now that's very easy for students to learn at their own pace. Not just this, within Teams, there is a capability of live translation. So if I'm speaking in English or I'm speaking in Hindi, a student sitting in Karnataka can turn on those live captions and actually understand it in Kannada. So that's how you can use technology to take it to the last mile students. Now let me come to for your employees, right? They are really creating your solutions. So how do you empower them in a hybrid world? On the productivity front, if you got a chance to know, just last week we announced something called Copilot. So M365, Microsoft 365 has launched AI inbuilt into our productivity solutions. And it is not the pilot, it is the Copilot. So I've, basically if we are spending hours and hours of time in creating PowerPoint decks, in creating emails, I've been there, for example, post this RT, I'm going to send you an email now. I usually take 1 hour or 2 hours to draft that email. But with Copilot, it's just a matter of seconds. I tell them the context and that's it. It'll create the draft for me. And it is your Copilot. I need to give it the instructions. It will do what I say and then I send it out. So you still need a person who is going to really be the brain, and Copilot is just going to do all the manual work. We are now, at work really bogged down with a lot of tedious stuff. We have lengthy to-do lists, right? 20 to-do lists, 20 pointers in that to-do list. And that takes us hours. How can we simplify and crunch that into 1 hour? That's what Copilot will do to you. Right now, let me introduce you to Copilot. I think I'm very personally excited about this. Really changes the way I work. I'm sure, just a sneak peek into that, you'll also be able to see why this is so exciting.
So there are several memes which are going on. When I realized ChatGPT can do my work, there's a smiley face. And then this next phase is when I realized ChatGPT can do my work, it's a sad face because you realize that it's going to take your job. But that's not really the case, because over here, you are still the brains, you are still in control of the airplane. But Copilot is going to really do all of the menial work, all of the manual work, all of those tasks for you. So you're still in control. The Copilot is going to really help you in doing that. So thank you, everyone.
Firstly, thanks a lot for the tip. Moving on to the next question, I would love to hear Varun and Swapnil's views on this. So essentially, here there are multiple factors which contribute to the success of an edtech startup, right? A great product is one, but that's not the only thing that is necessary. You need to create a necessity for the product in the minds of the customers. And, at the same time, you also need to build a sufficiently large customer base which uses that product on a regular basis. Now, obviously, every edtech startup, and I'm sure that all of you would have also seen this, you would have started off with an idea, and then you would have idea would have gradually evolved in terms of both your strategy of deployment as well as, the business model itself that you're deployed. And you have seen all sorts of evolutions, all sorts of transitions. Now, we spoke about collaboration a while back, but this is a good time to actually dwell a little deeper into it. Varun, in your thought process, what role does collaboration play when it comes to the success of an edtech startup? What can edtechs do by collaborating with schools, universities, and other kinds of formal education systems in order to create, more effective and innovative learning tools?
I'll pick up a few key words, Hari, that you use. One is evolution.
Yeah.
So first of all, right, education's definitely about evolution and not a revolution, as some of us believe, right? I entered the sector in 2009 after reading this very famous CLSA report that came out in 2008. The least talked about thing here is cost of acquisition. So again, Bill Gates is right that he missed the well in between, which is internet, which Google and YouTube and everybody.
Yeah.
There's a search for it, right? So sure, it's convenient to say he's only seen two one where they're successful and one I think they're going to be successful. And sure, they're trying to catch the Bing, space Google and get the second also. But I think we talk very little about cost of acquisition and the mistakes we all make, right? We're trying to capture a market share at any cost. Some of it's changed in the funding window. We often talk about partnership. We often talk about collaboration. But honestly, right, let's ask this question to all of us. Although schools and colleges, we see them as a go-to-market channel, not really a collaborator. Right. Same goes for some of them. They ask the right questions, like schools ask questions like, "This is great, but how will you make sure my teachers use this? What is the value my learner will get?" Right. So those are right questions, right? The problem I have is that sometimes this collaboration, in the name of fixing those core problems, we are creating a duplication or a supplementary learnings, right? That's not great for the learner at the end. But I do think there is huge opportunity for several stakeholders, whether it is institutions, K-12 or either, doesn't matter. EdTech players and employers. Because at the end of the day, right, that's where the goal is. And Jadesh is right in saying the fundamental problem starts much, much, much earlier. Whether it is numeracy, literacy, those kind of things go down into, deeper in the country. I really think there's need for more not-for-profits to start with, where we started to bring more equity into the play. So yeah, great.
Swapnil, yeah.
Yeah, so just before I share my views, I'll just give a little bit of background, because most of you all have spoken about schools and largely K-12 education, in which I have zero experience. In adult learning, the number one thing that works? Testing. Right? And I'll give you an example. We launched a program without tests. People were distracted. We started a program by saying, hey, at the end, there's going to be a test around this thing. Everybody was glued onto it. So what the hell is wrong with testing? Why have we given it such a bad name? Just because it used to happen earlier? No, right? But this seems archaic, right? This doesn't sound as fancy as Copilot, right? You want to be in education, keep the goddamn test, right? Keep the goddamn test, because the test is important. Okay, let me give you another example, right? So we had another client, right, that wanted to look good in front of their HR and say, yaar, VR mein kya chal raha hai? AR mein kya chal raha hai? Right? And they said, come on, let's do because we do literally hundreds of courses on presentation skills, communication. Yaar, kuch VR mein batao, kya kar sakte? Right? So we said, okay, let's build something, and we brought a few things together. When we went to the actual learner with current VR technology, I don't know how VR technology is going to be 10 years down the line, so I can't predict what can happen. Current VR technology, they wanted to use it for not more than 8 minutes. They said, bhai, pura din computer pe rehta hu. Now you're putting me in this thing. Right? Now sounds fancy, right? VR is not going to work. Right? Because what people actually want is another human being in flesh and blood in front of them. Now, just the kind of last thing around technology and content libraries, right? Listen, content libraries have been around for 15 years now, including YouTube and everything. Today in India, if anybody wants to learn full stack development, they can do it for free. You don't even need anything. You can do it for free. Then why isn't everybody doing it for free? Because like Sir said, it's the teacher's job is kandhe pe haath rakhna. Right? And there's another quote that, there are 3 kinds of human beings on this planet, right? Number 1, the immovable. Number 2, the movable. And number 3, the people that move. Right? So you can have all the content libraries that you want, you can have all the AI that you want, but in the end, the role of the teacher, the role of the coach, the role of the motivator is the single most important role that you can play. Right? So that's why my only suggestion to everyone would be, and I don't understand K-12, so I can't speak of that, at least when it comes to adult learning, please keep the learner at the heart of everything and don't introduce technology for the sake of doing it, like I have done and failed in the past. And that requires us to be close to the learner, to be talking to the learner, right? Not focusing on what the learner says, but how he actually behaves, right? So looking at behavior is much more important than what he'll fill in a survey. Right? Because we write all nice to do things in survey. If surveys mattered, every Hindustan Lever product would have been a super hit, right? Because before they launch every product, it always looks good on the surveys, right? But it's not good in the survey.
Thank you so much for that, for validating the necessity for tests. Wonderful insight over there. Thank you. Now just moving on to the next question. This is more from, an entrepreneur's mindset, and I will, but all of you guys have, seen this in the past. In your view, what do scalable and profitable companies in this space would look like? Imran would like to, understand your views on this topic.
So basically, my take is more about the end result. Okay, if we are looking for a product, okay, we need to understand the end market. Okay, and keeping the right candidate at the right place. That is the most important thing. Okay, we create a fabulous product, but we have a wrong person at the right place. Okay, that spoils the entire brand value. Okay, for example, okay, but let's say in Mumbai, okay, I come from a completely different field. Okay, so we cater to overseas education, like people who are going for MBAs or undergrads. Okay, so I have a set of counselors and the proper counselors, well-trained counselors, okay? But again, the geographical location and the areas plays a very, very massive role, okay? There is one which is an affluent, upfront counselor, okay? I can use that person for a Bandra location, okay? But I cannot use that same person for a Thane location, okay? Because if I put the same person in Thane, okay, that will degrow my business. When we talk about edtech startups, okay, we need to first understand the market and the requirement, okay? We cannot use the same person everywhere. Okay, it's horses for courses. That's the most important thing. And this makes a difference. Okay, because
Maybe that will not exist to us years. But great. Thank you so much, everyone. This was a truly wonderful discussion, and the good part about this discussion was the diversity in terms of all of your profiles. All of you came from different parts of the edtech landscape, like I pointed out at the beginning. And my hope at the beginning of the discussion was that this will, we will have, a lot of different insights coming in. Like, for example, Swapnil spoke about how, from a corporate perspective, what some of you spoke about from a K-12 perspective, and so on and so forth. So from that perspective, a truly diverse set of opinions that came in, and that had, enriched the discussion to a great extent. Of course, we spoke about, how, difficult the business is in general, but which business is not difficult. Having said that, in my optimism, I would believe that edtech still has a significantly bright future going forward. Obviously, there will be turbulences in between, but in the long run, I see this being a potential game changer. Of course, it all depends upon how you're able to create effective products targeted on the learners and the teachers, like all of you pointed out. So the key to success over here would be to create those products which would specifically target the end user or the end customer. And along the way, we will have technology playing a role. Obviously, it's yet left to discover how that role will evolve. But my firm belief is that in the long run, again, like the edtech industry assessed, the role of technology and the use of technology will be positive. And I would like to thank all of you for your views on all those, on the various trends that we spoke about, like immersive learning, homeschooling, AI itself. Would also like to thank you for all your views on, what it takes to succeed in this space as an entrepreneur, and what are the various tailwinds and challenges that all of you are facing on a daily basis. So with all of that, we come to the conclusion of the discussion. Once again, a big thanks to all of you, for taking time out for this discussion. And, hope to see more innovation and growth in the edtech space, especially from the set of luminaries sitting over here.
Thanks, you. You did a good job. Let's give him a round of applause. You did a good job.
And lobby level citrus is the name of the restaurant. So we all are going to have lunch together.